Hi guys, it's Martin. I've been a dating and relationship coach for 17 years, working with guys from all over the world. And today, I've got, what are we talking about today?
What do you think of happy wife, happy life?
Okay, this whole concept of happiness is really funny to me. What I tell my clients is that this idea that your woman is gonna be happy, just forget about that. She's not gonna be happy. That's not how it works. Okay, I think that's the problem. Like, that's what guys are like. See, guys are like that. It's like guys are, they're at home, they got their beer, they got the PlayStation on, they don't have to work, they're happy. It's what guys are like. That's not what women are like. They're not like that. So this is the first problem, is that guys are using their conception of what it is to be happy and trying to apply it to women. That's not how it works. She's gonna be unhappy about something. Okay, now the key is, what is she gonna be unhappy about? Now that's what you get to decide. Okay, there's something, now it's not 100% of women, okay? I know a few women who are quite happy. My mother was a very happy person, okay? So there are a few, she has a lot of gratitude. She really appreciated, what she had. But and I've been with some women that are like that, but it's rare. Generally speaking, women are gonna be unhappy about something, and it's your job to decide what they're gonna be unhappy about. So, generally, what should you have them be unhappy about? They should be unhappy about something that is so important to you that you don't mind getting shit over it, okay? So, I don't know what that might be for you. It varies for each person. Generally, in my relationships, the thing that women have been unhappy about is that I haven't promised not to see other women. That's usually what women are unhappy with me about. But, and so of course I have to deal with a lot of emotions and a lot of stuff around that. But okay, for me, that freedom to be able to be with other women if I want to be. It doesn't mean I always am, but it's more about the fact that that is an option for me. That freedom is so important to me that I don't mind if she's unhappy about it, and I will compensate for it in other ways. I understand she's gonna be unhappy about that, and there's gonna be emotional fallout, and I have to deal with that. That's just how it works. So you gotta choose what she's gonna be unhappy about. Now the thing is, most guys don't choose what she's gonna be unhappy about, and so she ends up being unhappy about random stuff that just annoys you. So don't spend your time trying to make her happy about everything. This is also how guys end up being unhappy in their relationships, because they end up giving up a lot of stuff, thinking, oh, if I don't do this, maybe she'll be happy. Oh, if I don't do this, maybe she's gonna be unhappy. If I don't do this, maybe she's gonna be unhappy. And that's how, in another video, I talked about how if the relationship is exactly how a woman wants to be, the guy's not gonna be happy. And if the relationship is exactly how the man wants it to be, the woman isn't gonna be happy, right? It just doesn't work. It's like, in Titanic, at the end, the guy dies, okay? You don't want to die in your relationship, right? So there you go. And in the guy's fantasy, you have porn, and she's got to be, in whatever position you want, all holes, all access, all the time. It's like, she doesn't want to do that. At least she doesn't want to do it all the time. Presumably, she wants to do it some of the time. That's how I roll. But anyway. So she's going to be unhappy about something. So that's very key. You gotta decide what are the things in your life that you're willing for her to be unhappy about. Actually, this is something that my dad mentioned when I was a kid. We had on our house, deadbolts. And the deadbolts opened with a key. And my mom really didn't like that we had deadbolts to open with a key, because she thought, they look ugly. She didn't like that every time she goes to the door to open it from the inside, she needed a key to open it, so that way you can't, break the window and reach in and open it or whatever. And my dad said to me, oh, your mother, she really doesn't like this, but there are some things that you just have to make your partner unhappy about because they're just too important. Now, you get to decide what's too important. In my dad's case, it was, it being difficult for people to get into the house to steal things. In my case, it's, my ability to choose to be with other women when I want to be. You choose whatever. You do you, So there you go. I think that's from my perspective, that's really what the problem is.
Okay. Keeping it rolling.
Do you have any thoughts or questions about that? I think that's not. I don't think I've ever heard anybody have that approach to this idea.
So how do you?
But trying to make women happy is just a never-ending, hamster wheel. It's just it's just not really possible.
So why do you think society pushes this so much? Why do you think? Yeah. Why do they do that?
Okay, yeah, actually it's very straightforward. Early in another video I talked about how what women want lines up a lot more with what society wants. And that's because society wants to perpetuate itself. It wants stability, it wants, continuation. And so what women want leads more to that, right? Women want to, have families, generally speaking, not all women, but you know what I'm saying, on average, women want to have families, they want to have kids, they want to have a stable, consistent relationship, they want to have a stable living situation. And so all of those things are very, positive because they're not disruptive. They really fit in with, how everybody else is living their lives also and how the world is set up in most countries. And so because of that, there is a strong inclination towards promoting the things that women want. I think that's pretty much the reason. I mean, if guys got exactly what they wanted, it just, no work would get done. I mean, how many, it's funny that girls will complain about how guys make more money than girls do, and I'm not saying this is not an unreasonable complaint, okay? I'm not trying to say that women should get paid less or something like that, so don't take this wrong. But what I am saying is that what do guys do with the money? They spend it on women. It's like, guys don't spend that much money on themselves. And when they do, they spend that money because they think it's gonna get them women. Yes, guys like fancy cars, but then what do they do with them? Drive them through the middle of the city. Why? Because they want girls to see them driving this fancy car in the middle of the city. It's not because they're going to be out in the woods with their fancy car. I mean, so the thing that women don't seem to understand these days is that men's motivation is largely, and not all men, right? I mean, not all men, but it's largely men's motivation is around women. And so women entering the workforce, one of the problems it's created is that men have a lot less motivation to do things because even if they work hard, it's like, okay, well, they're not going to be able to really take care of a woman anyway, right? There's the concept of, bringing home the bacon. Right, I was reading about how the studies show that cultures, this is like hunter-gatherer cultures, the protein intake had a big impact on how well those cultures did over time. And so that's where this whole idea comes in. It's like, right, because protein is necessary for muscle growth, right, and it's difficult to obtain. And so having a marginal amount more than another competing society. And so this is another thing that people forget. People look at, the US, for example, and they go, oh, let's talk about US society. And it's broken in these ways, and it's got these problems. And in France, they talk about it in France, and in Japan, they talk about it in Japan. And they think that that the problem is between men and women. And they think, oh, men and women don't get along, and they have these problems. But what people don't understand is that the cultures that exist now are the cultures that survived over time, over all of the other cultures that existed before. All right, so we've had a cultural death match, you can say. And right now in human history, where we have a certain number of cultures, and the vast majority have been eliminated. And a culture is a group of men and women. And I read this originally in a book called What's Good About Men, How Cultures Flourish by Exploiting Men. And it's a very interesting book. And what he points out is that cultures are men and women working together, right? That's what society is. It's men and women working together. And one culture and one society competes against another culture and another society. And some of those cultures and societies, the way that the men and women work together works better than the way that it works in other places. And so those places are more successful. And so the reason the cultures are the way they are isn't because someone had some nefarious plan. It's because that is what has worked best so far. Now, that doesn't mean there's not room for evolution and that things can't get better. Of course they can. But you shouldn't think that the way things are is arbitrary. They're not arbitrary. They are that way because they've worked. And so, a lot of, when you're talking about women and children, it's like you need a stable situation to raise children in, to nurture children in. And so women tend to lean towards that direction more, whereas men tend to lean not so much in the direction of that. They're thinking more about acquiring more. And you need to, in a time before we had pensions and Social Security and health care and all this stuff, the only safety was having more stuff. Like that was the only way. People would die at 35 with 10 kids, just randomly from the flu or something, like 100 years ago or 200 years ago. And the only way that they would know their family would be okay is if they had massive amounts of money. So they tried to get massive amounts of money by hook or by crook. It's not, that people were evil back then. It was just the necessities of the time. And, those necessities may have changed, but it takes time for people and society to change too. So I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, so can a man and woman be happy together?
I mean, what do you mean by happy? I mean, can they? I mean, I think the answer is yes, but it's kind of, what do you mean when you say happy? Because when I say happy in this context, what I mean is, can they create a life together that is meaningful enough to both of them that it's worth the trade-offs? Yes, I think so. Absolutely.
So your answer is yes, with trade-offs.
Yeah, there's always trade-offs. There's always trade-offs. Absolutely. I mean, here's the thing. Other people are annoying. Why? Because they don't do exactly what we want all the time. I mean, that's when we talk about the future of sex robots. Why is people excited about the idea? It's because, if you have a sex robot, they'll do exactly what you want. And people aren't like that. You have to negotiate and compromise with them. And people want it to be easy. And if you just have someone who does whatever you want, then it's going to be easy. But I would say that that's not going to be as fulfilling.
But for you though, you're not willing to compromise on certain things, which are going to make the woman unhappy.
Sure.
So that's an attempt to preserve your happiness in that relationship, that woman.
Oh, yeah,
you're
yeah.
Not willing to compromise.
Yeah.
Because if you did, you wouldn't be happy.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. And I mean, everybody has those red lines. And here's the thing is that with anyone, any person you date, there's going to be trade-offs. Absolutely. There's going to be things about them you don't like. It's not that you're going to find a person who doesn't have anything you don't like about them. That's not how it works. How it works is, you and I have different preferences. So you might choose a girl who has problems that I think are the worst problems of all time and I would never want to deal with them. But And maybe I would choose a woman that you would feel the same way. But for you, those problems, you go, not a big deal for me. Maybe for some people, maybe having a woman who dresses a certain way is really important for them. And if she doesn't dress a certain way, then they just wouldn't be able to be with her. And trying to get her to into fashion or something, they wouldn't hate her. Or maybe that's not a good. I mean, another example would be health. I wouldn't date a smoker. Somebody else would. They think it's not a big deal. That's another example. So it's really individual. And I think this is so important because these days, when you look at dating advice for men, it's all about get more money, get bigger muscles, look better, be taller. I don't know how you're supposed to be taller, but apparently you're supposed to do that. And none of it is about this real stuff that actually is what drives the relationship, which is, can you and this person compromise in ways that don't bother either of you too much, right? That's really the key. It's like, okay, I hate camping. I was a Boy Scout. I can't stand camping. If I never go camping ever again, that'll be totally fine with me. I was in Australia and I met this girl, beautiful girl. And I said to her, oh, so, I was trying to see if we could meet up that weekend. And she said, oh, I've got plans this weekend. I said, oh, really? Oh, that's cool. What do you got going on this weekend? And she said, oh, I'm going to go camping. And I thought, oh, God. And I said, oh, is it your first time? She said, no, I go camping all the time. I love it. And I was thinking, oh, God, there's no way I could have a relationship with this girl. Well, why not? It's not because camping is a bad thing. It's not like I'm like, oh God, what a terrible person, she camps. It's not that at all. It's that camping is an activity that she enjoys and that she wants to spend a significant amount of time doing. If I'm dating her, then the options are I have to spend a lot of time doing something I don't want to do, or she's not going to be able to spend the amount of time doing something she wants to do. And so she's going to be less happy, less satisfied. She's going to have to give up something that is pretty important to her. So I just thought, okay, well, and camping is not a big deal. I mean, it's just camping, right? But I just thought, yeah, probably this wouldn't work out between us, probably, right? Now, you could ignore that and just go for it anyway. But probably what would happen is the only real compromise where neither of us, okay, there's a few compromises. Compromise one, I go camping and I'm miserable and I'm probably a lousy partner. Now you could say, oh, if you keep going camping, maybe you would develop a love for it. I went camping every month for years, so unlikely. Maybe I could get her to find some other activity that she would enjoy more and she would give up camping. It's possible. Or she goes camping, I do something else, and we just spend this time apart. Now that could possibly work, but maybe what that means is that we just grow apart. And she's having these experiences that are important to her with someone else. Now, I think that if I didn't despise camping, if I just thought I don't really want to do it as much as her, then it's fine. Sometimes I would go, sometimes I wouldn't go, and she'd go with her friends. And that's probably very cool because, that means sometimes when we meet, she's going to tell me, oh, I went camping and here's what happened. And I'm going to have some interesting stories to hear from her. And, while she's going camping, I'm going to be doing something else that I enjoy and I'll have something to tell her. And I think that can be very nice. But, the level that I don't like camping is probably no compromise possible. So, yeah.
So you have to make your life happy and know exactly what your non-negotiables are before you go into a relationship. Because if you compromise on what's really important to you, you won't be happy.
Absolutely. And the problem with that is that you will take that out on your partner in other ways, right? That's the real problem. It's like, we have this idea that we can all be, fucking Buddha or something, and but we can't. And you got to be honest with yourself. It's like, if you're going to give up certain things, that's going to come out in other ways and ways that are not helpful to the relationship and are damaging to the relationship. And that's what I was saying about, any compromise. It's like, that's why anything that you're not willing to give up or any way that you're not willing to make your partner happy, it better be important enough that you're willing to deal with whatever shitstorm results. That's really the way to think about it, is like, okay, this is something my partner wants from me. Will I be willing to deal with the shitstorm that I'm going to get by the fact that I'm not satisfying them in this way? And B, what else am I, and part of that is, what am I going to be willing to do in exchange for that? Right? That's really key, because it's not like the person's just going to go, okay, well, I'm just unhappy about that, and they're just going to be bitchy and moany about it. It's like, you're going to have to make up for it in some other way. You're going to have to exceed their expectations in some other way.
Otherwise, it doesn't work.
Yeah, and then you have the issue, when I was talking about the possibility of maybe I could get this girl into some other activity that I really like. It's like, yeah, maybe. But here's what happens is you lose time. And time is really important because if you're going to find someone you're really going to be with for a long time, the relationship is going to take several years. And, let's say it takes 3 to 5 years. Well, if you're a woman and you want to have kids, how many 3 to 5 year time periods do you have to try and have a real relationship with someone? Maybe you start at 22. Okay, if you're and you want to have kids by the time you're 35, that's only 17 years. So you have what, 4 or 5 chances essentially, and that's if you're with someone all the time, which you're not going to be. So you only have a few chances to really make a go of it with a relationship, with a long-term relationship. And probably when you're and probably when you're 22, it's probably not going to be a person you meet when you're 22. Could be, but it's more likely you're more working with like 25 to 35, more likely. Oh, I said 17. It's not 17. I did math all wrong. It was 13 years. So 10 to 13 years probably is about what you have, and that's just really not a lot of time. And women women are obviously more aware of this than guys because it's more serious for them than it is for us. But even as a guy, you do have a time limit too. And so, you need to think about that. Now, the difference is, I guess, we have to put in a lot more effort on the front end, like the number of women you have to talk to or interact with to just get a first date is like way higher, whereas women, they don't have to do anything. They just have to say yes and they have a first date. So, so we have to put in a lot of more effort in the front end. So that means that, sometimes we may not spend the time necessary to be able to do that. We may be focused on other things, but we have more time in the aggregate. So the fact that we don't focus on those things sometimes is okay. But yeah, there's a time window for sure, for both, and the time window isn't because it's because there's biological limits, but it's mainly because it takes time to get to know someone, and it takes time to develop a strong relationship with someone. Even if that person is the right person, it takes time. And the fact is that the person that you're with, most of the people that you date are not the person you want to be with, right? And it's not neither good nor bad. It's just the way it is. It's just, it's just the way it is. It's not good or bad, but yeah. So, you need to think about how much. Now, I'm not saying it wouldn't be worth it for, in the example that I gave about trying to get her into something else. I'm not saying it can't be worth it. But you should think about that. It's like, if you're in a phase as a guy where you're putting in a lot of effort into dating, so you're getting, a lot of potential dates, probably this is a girl that I would eliminate her early. Now, maybe she shows a lot of interest in you, right? Okay, well, maybe then, like, let's say, you meet her up that time, and you talk to her and, and you go on one date and you find out, oh, she's really into camping or whatever. Maybe, that's not really my thing. But if she calls you up and says, hey, why don't we hang out? Sure, why not? You probably, as a guy, I'm sure you have some free nights. Guys aren't like girls where if girls said yes to everyone, they'd spend their entire life laying in bed with the legs open. Guys aren't like that. It's like, we have a hard time. It takes us a lot of time. And girls have no awareness of this at all. They have no awareness. They don't understand that, for a guy, to get a first date, they don't understand the number of hours it took to get that first date. And it's difficult because you can't really tell them, because it sort of implies that you're not very good. It's like, oh, if you had to swipe 100 girls before you got a match with me, like, maybe you're not that appealing. And it's like, that's just the way it is, but it's reality. So I always feel like, if a girl is going to put in some effort, then you should give her an opportunity, because maybe she recognizes something that you don't. and it's always worth exploring. But when it is you that has to put in all the effort. And so, yeah, you were asking me about knowing you really need to spend a lot of time thinking about what kind of girl matches your life and your values and the life you want to have. Because if you have a very clear idea of what that is, then in your search, you can know who to spend more time on, right? Because generally speaking, I don't know about other guys, but for me, generally the girls that I liked the most, the girls I was most into, it took me months to get a first date with them. Like, I had to be in touch with them for months before I got that first date with the girls that I liked the most. And how do you know it's worth it? You can't do that with 100 girls. You maybe meet 100 girls or 20 girls. Let's say you meet, this week, in a week you have, on Tinder or in person or whatever, you meet 10 girls. You interact with 10 girls. And, some of them, maybe they make it really easy to meet. Some of them make it really hard. But how do you, it's like, okay, well, here's 3 girls that are making it really hard. Should I spend any time on them at all? Well, if you know what you're looking for, then you can go, you know what, these 2, no. But this one, she has a lot of what I'm looking for, or she seems to have a lot of what I'm looking for. So I'm willing to put in more effort to pursue her. And here's the thing is that if you think that she matches your life and your values and who you are as a person and the way you want to live your life, then she would want to be with you too. She just doesn't know it, right? And that's the other key part. The way that I think about it is, when people say, oh, you should choose the girls that like you. It's like, well, yeah, but how much do they have to know about you before they know they like you? See, so that's what I always think. I think, okay. Now there are some girls, I was dating a girl I was really, really into, but for some reason, and we went out many times, went out on many dates. For some reason, she not really that into me. I don't know why, but I think I spent enough time with her and she knew me well enough to be able to decide that she doesn't want to be with me for whatever reason it might be. I don't know. Can't imagine. Maybe because I'm allergic to cats and she likes cats. I don't know.
That's good stuff.
Okay. Thanks for joining us. If you got questions or comments, you can leave them. Please like and subscribe. And don't be a dick. I don't like dicks.